Hello and welcome to the Chuka channel, where I like talking about literature among other things. So chances are you've probably at some point heard of your life of It Ends With Us, especially if you really like books like I do, because no matter where you go, people don't seem to shut the fuck up about it. People are always talking about how this is one of the greatest books they read in their lives. Oh, this book made me so emotional I cried all the time. Oh, this is one of the greatest books I read in my life. Oh, this book cured my cancer. But get that bullshit out of here. It's time for a real book critic to take an actual critical look at this book for its prose, characters, storylines, plot, and everything that makes for an excellent read. I ain't like any of these guys who just give 5 stars to every book they read. I have standards. So, what did I think about it? Yeah, it's actually pretty good. In fact, I'd go as far as to say It Ends With Us is one of the greatest books I've read in my life. If you saw my recent review on Book Lovers, you know that I'm a big fan of books that take a more mature look at romances, and It Ends With Us most certainly scratched that itch for me. It's not just your average romance book that we've seen done so many times before in the past. It's about relationships, it's about being hurt in those relationships, it's about so many complex things, and I just think Colleen Hoover did an excellent job with this novel, and by the time I got out of it, I was just so emotionally impacted. I was shocked, to say the least. I didn't think I was going to like this book that much. So yeah, when people say that this is like, I don't know if you can read it from here, every person with a heartbeat should read this book, yeah, legit, I do agree with that. So of course, as somebody who really enjoyed It Ends With Us, I was somewhat excited to read the sequel. When I first heard of It Starts With Us, I wasn't really sure if this book needed to exist or not. It Ends With Us has a pretty conclusive finale. I didn't really feel the need for a sequel. In fact, initially I didn't think It Starts With Us was a sequel at all. I thought it was a prequel. I mean, it's called It Starts With Us, not It Continues to End With Us. And it follows the character Atlas, so I figured that it would take place before. But no, it's actually a direct sequel to It Ends With Us that takes place immediately after its epilogue, which furthered my worries that this book is completely unnecessary and doesn't really need to exist. Of course, I would like to know more about the character of Atlas, since he is one of the best characters from the first book that we don't really know that much about, all things considered. But was it really super necessary? Not to mention that It Starts With Us has huge shoes to fill. I mean, It Ends With Us is one of the most best-selling books of all time. It's made sold like a bajillion, million, trillion copies by now. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list since before New York Times bestseller were a thing. But of course, I still like to give books fair shots, and It Starts With Us is written by Colleen Hoover still, who is an author I have grown to really like, and in general, I just wanted to see what it would be like. So, what did I think? I am happy to say that I enjoyed a good 50%, maybe 45%, 40%, 38% of It Starts With Us. Now, before I get into my review of It Starts With Us, I do want to note that I will be going into mild spoilers for It Ends With Us, because, it takes place immediately after this one, and, spoilers of It Ends With Us are kind of inevitable. I will try to be as vague as possible of all the important parts, but I might slip up here and there when talking about it. So, you have been warned. The character of Atlas is one of the biggest parts of It Starts With Us, and for good reason. Even though he's a pretty big part of it, you don't really get to know a lot about him in It Ends With Us. So I do think a sequel where you explore more of his past and his own family and the events leading up to what happened to him in It Ends With Us is kind of warranted, because there could be a pretty interesting story here. And he is by far the best character in this book. The parts with Atlas overshadow everything else that happens in it. The parts with him trying to regroup with his family and try and find some sort of love after all the terrible shit that happened to him in the previous book was genuinely touching to me. He's loving, he cares about people, he genuinely tries to fix his relationships, even if those relationships can be all kinds of problematic. The struggle that Atlas faces is one that I think is emotionally investing. It's not really something you usually see in these types of books, especially with certain family members and the way they treat Atlas. Atlas as a character has values, and those values are challenged throughout the course of the book, which I thought made for some really compelling storytelling. This also ties into his newfound relationship with Lily, which features its own set of problems. And the way it's tackled, I kinda like for most part. Yeah. This leads me to the parts that I didn't really like that much about It Starts With Us. You see, well, in part I love the parts with Atlas, and I think he's a great character. He's also not the only protagonist in this book. 50% of the book is Atlas, while the other 50% is once again Lily. Now, I love Lily. I think she's a great character. She was great in the first book. Her story ended already. In fact, her character arc in It Starts With Us is just a complete repeat of her character arc in It Ends With Us. The whole point of It Ends With Us is Lily learning to look Ryle in the eye and tell him to go fuck himself. And yet now she has problems doing it again? I'm sorry, but it just makes no sense to me. I don't mean to undermine all of the things she's gone through from that first book, but the conflict and the reason behind it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, girl, just look at the guy and tell him to fuck off. And this discrepancy in my suspension of disbelief when it comes to the conflict of Lily's character arc was a huge problem for pretty much the whole thing. Yes, Colleen Hoover still has great prose and it was fun to read through these parts, but I just wasn't as emotionally invested into Lily's character in the same way I was with her character in the first book. But still, I can kinda roll with it for the most part, until we get about halfway through the book, which is when It Starts With Us starts to take a lot of really bizarre turns. So I want to mention before I go into this part, that at the end of It Starts With Us, Colleen Hoover puts in her acknowledgement sections that, and I quote, "It Ends With Us is the one book I have been adamant that I will never write a sequel for. I felt it ended where it needed to end, and didn't want to put Lily through more stress. I 100% agree." But then hashtag book talk happened, and the online petition, and the messages, and videos, and I realized most of you weren't asking for me to put them through more pain. You simply wanted to see Lily and Atlas happy. This is where the fundamental issues where It Starts With Us start. You see, yes, on one part it is cool to see these characters who have gone through so much pain and suffering finally get their happy ending. At the same time, having a bunch of characters be happy all the time doesn't really make for compelling storytelling. You see, storytelling, inherently speaking, is about characters going through suffering and going through obstacles to get what they want. But if they never suffer, then you don't have a story. I swear to God, the entire last half of this book is just the characters being happy all the time, and them saying how happy they are, and that happiness is all over us now. The romantic scenes with Lily and Atlas are so exaggeratedly happy, it makes me question what the point of them are to begin with. Not only are the scenes super happy, but there are specific lines that just have me just really concerned, not believing what I was reading. I shit you not, there are lines in this book that border on, "Wow, Atlas, I guess you could say it really was and It Starts With Us." Or, "Wow, Lily, I guess you could say the real It Starts With Us was the friends we made along the way." This is the level of happiness I'm talking about here. And all of this leads to an ending that is so weird and bizarre to me. There is one final speech at the end that's the scene from Birdemic where the characters are clapping for a minute straight.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have some great news. Our board of directors has agreed to the acquisition of NCT Software by Oracle Corporation for $1 billion.
Now, does this mean I didn't like It Starts With Us? Not at all. Like I said in the beginning, I enjoyed a good 38% of this book. The parts with Atlas really do shine, and the parts with his family members are also great. The parts with Lily, on the other hand, I thought were either unnecessary or arbitrary to the plot. But to be completely honest, if you're as big a fan of It Ends With Us as I was, then I do still think it warrants a read. Who knows, maybe you even get a certain amount of pleasure from seeing these characters be so happy all the time. And if that works for you, then yeah, 100% you should check it out. And I am glad this book exists. It Starts With Us is a showcase of how much a support for an author can go a long way. So much so that we can get a sequel for a book that so many people love out of the sheer love people have for the book. And I think that's awesome, even if I might not have enjoyed it as much as some other people did. So yeah, if you liked It Ends With Us, then you should probably check out It Starts With Us, if only to see how it is. Well, that's gonna be it for this video. Did you read It Starts With Us or It Ends With Us? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Logachuga channel for more book reviews. And hey, if you like this video, why not watch another one? I have a playlist on screen right now with all of my book related content. Well, that's gonna be about it. See ya.